Welcome aboard. It's Captain G. This is our third and final of our Axis strategy videos. This is our end of game strategy video. So, where we left off um, last video, mid game, was talking about Japan and um, how we were debating doing a Pearl Harbor um, air attack, possibly even invading the Hawaiian Islands, or if we could work through the logistics, doing a landing in San Francisco and attacking the continental United States. Um, we were very fortunate to hit the long range air die roll on the round that we had wanted to do the attack. Um, that we think that made the difference in the battle, was having the air there and capturing San Francisco. We think the attack, the I think in one of the comments I shared Eggman's point of, if you're going to go to war with him anyway, why not start the fight with a kick in the face? Um, because had we decided not to do that, and had we decided to go south and hit either Anzac or the Dutch East Indies, that die roll with where the U.S. was at that point on their income would have brought them into the war. And it would have brought them into the war at full strength with those fleets in place in Hawaii and San Francisco, earning their full bonus, and we would have had to deal with a very strong U.S. As it turned out for us, we were able to take them down from a IPP standpoint, remove this major factory from production and from tech for the U.S. He sent out a response and took out some of our transports, but his Hawaiian fleet with his two battleships, we were able to sink off the coast of Wake, and that pretty much gave us naval hegemony in the Pacific, gave us the Kido Butai, reduced the cost of our capital ships, and our plan was to do sort of the Silk strategy and Thunderball, for those who watch that, where he's producing multiple capital ships every turn, just working on three at a time, one in each phase, and rolling them right off the assembly line. But we started that, but then stopped because there's still been no response from the U.S. in the Pacific. And while we were operating in the U.S. and the Eastern Pacific, what had been a nailed down China started to come unhinged as the KMT built up an air force, some anti-air capability, counterattacked into some of these territories and started eating into Japan's income. That forced us to basically turn around and respond. And it took our fleet a couple turns to get back into position. So we used those turns to kind of sweep the KMT back in their corner and told them to sit down and think about what they were doing, and then prepare for our taking of the Dutch East Indies. That delay hurt Germany, and I'll talk about that when we get to the German point, but it did work out well for Japan. We've now secured the Dutch East Indies, more income, more strategic victory points. We got the 4 islands when we hit the U.S., and we've been reinforcing them with coastal artillery and defensive fortifications for free every turn, and plan to continue that until the end of the game. So that's going well. We've not been able to finish off any of our enemies. One of our early points was we wanted to wipe out the CCP so we wouldn't have to worry about them. And sure enough, Mark the Shark now is in 4 different territories, causing a ruckus. I'm not sure how this guy got on the other side of the Himalayas. Interesting. But now he's increasing his recruitment roles, and our forces are down in Southeast Asia, down hemming in the KMT. So we're going to have to come back And this, plus the fact that the Soviet Union's at war and Mongolia is activated now, is putting a looming threat on our border, on our northern border, which we've been ignoring to this point. So our in-game strategy at this point now, finish off the Far East Command. We're almost there. Secure the rest of India, secure the Southeast Asia, get the Asia for Asian victory point, which would max out Japan, all 4 victory conditions, as well as 3 victory cities with Nanking, Calcutta, and Tokyo. While we'd love to have Anzac, I think we might just play around with them, threaten them, but we need to lock down China and prepare for anything that Mark might have planned for us in the north. So that's sort of our look ahead at Japan. We thought this went well. It did what we wanted. It distracted the U.S. It ate into their income. It took them a couple of years, 3, maybe 4 turns to build their force, to respond, to come in. And then once he retook it, it's been focused on the Atlantic. So it really took them out of the Pacific for most of the game, which worked well for Japan. So now we pivot. Let's talk about the Middle East, which was the site of our first big strategic and tactical defeat. For a while, we thought it might be our Leningrad or our Battle of Midway, the Battle of Tehran. So we had always planned for the Deutsche Afrika Korps to come into Egypt, but the British kept pulling back rather than engaging in combat. And the next thing we know, we had the opportunity to liberate southern Iraq, which the Italians had taken at first, but it cost Germany a bonus. So since the British retook it, gave us an opportunity to correct that and have the Germans take it and earn bonus points for it. And we thought, well, while we're here, why don't we have the DAK take southern Iran and earn those bonus points and deny that bonus from the British. We had been trying to convince Mark the Shark to attack northern Iran for some time when we were early in our war against England, but he didn't. So we thought incorrectly that he wouldn't, or that it wasn't really what he was interested in. And our plan was to send 1 infantry just to walk in and take this and have the rest of the force take this with air support. But I messed up on the placement of this fighter, landed him in Rhodes, should have really put him in Tobruk. Tobruk, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Tobruk would have worked. That would have been the best place for him, but I picked the wrong spot, so we couldn't bring the fighter in. So we had to we opted not to send the infantry up here, but to use them in the battle. Turned out we lost the battle, and Mark did what I think is a brilliant move for him. The Soviet Union went into Iran. So the repercussions of that for us on our strategy is that Soviet Union is now at war. They got to buy a ton of militia, which he did, or infantry class units at a cheaper price, because now he's at war. He gets his propaganda bonus, so he's earning more money, and he's not having to fight panzers. He's not having to fight anybody because he went to war with the British, and we're fighting for him. So it gave him all the benefits of aligning Mongolia, earning those incomes without any of the negatives of having to actually fight anybody. So that was a brilliant move on his part. And now if we want to go into the next phase of attacking the Soviet Union, one of the things that we had talked about before we lost this battle, Eggman and I, was leveraging the DAK's desert abilities in these deserts here in the far central west Soviet Union. That if we could put a blocking force here in the mountains sufficient, threatening Transcaucasia, which he would not want to give up because of the heavy IPP values of these territories here, as well as the alignment of Turkey to the Axis if we take Transcaucasia. So this blocking force against the Soviets, while the DAK force is the spearhead, followed by Italians and regular German forces through the deserts to threaten this city. In the odd chance that the war goes well for us against the Soviets, we thought this could be one. It's a city is not fortifying well, and I've never really seen Germany go after it in any of the other games that I've watched. So threaten this city, and then do our push into Kyiv, and then see if Stalingrad can't be that third city. And there you go. Germany has their victory point. Not counting on it, but that was sort of our approach. But now he's got these early warning territories here. Mountains prevent any kind of blitzing because their bonuses are only desert, not mountain. So it kind of thwarted us there. So that's still what we're building up to. You may notice we had some transports here, Italian as well as German, and we were shucking units, one and back, and railing forces down here, and that was to build up this flank to come around behind all of these Soviet forces. And if you had to send some stuff back to deal with that, great. That would help us in our push when we got to the war. But frankly, war with the Soviet Union isn't our top priority. We don't have to go to war to win the game. We already have a commanding lead with, we're in turn 14 now. The Italians just went. The U.S. is not. It's Christmas Eve. We're not sure if he's going to do his turn or not, which is why I'm doing this video now. But we're a year, maybe two, away from the end of the game. 3, maybe 4 more turns to go. We don't have to go to war with the Soviets at all. We can still win. And we're winning on the Japanese and possibly the Italian victory points, not counting any for Germany when we do our strategies. So that was this defeat. That was the consequences of what it meant to us and how it made us change what we were doing. Let me pull over now and talk about the European Axis powers. So Italy has been a great success. Everything we wanted to achieve with Italy, we have achieved. We got them in the war early. They started the war with their attacks on France and England. That secured a number of territories for us that we didn't have to roll and risk going Vichy or Free French. Kind of forced the Free French to be down in the jungles. And then reinforced by the DAK, we were able to make a big push towards Egypt. And I think Lancerbolt saw what we were doing and decided he didn't want to be in that fight and was coming up. I think he had planned on some reinforcements from the FEC. We saw some transports and some air and some units ready to move over to come over, but he missed the Japanese sub, which sank his transport, pretty much ended the reinforcements. There was no cavalry, and the units that were here got wiped out. So we had always planned on taking care of Greece for Italy last, after we secured the Med. We just didn't know how late in the game it would be, but we secured the Suez, and we were able to secure Gibraltar. And that worked out very well for us while our sub-Saharan African forces made it down, took South Africa. The submarine that was down there was very effective to deter him from building units at that factory, so that worked very well. And with the Italian turn that just finished, we took the last IPP that were left on the continent. We took the Gold Coast, We captured the Free French capital in Cameroon. Free France has options now of either of these worthless territories that are isolated. I don't see him going to either of those. He'll probably go to Madagascar, which we had plans to take that turn, the same turn that we just did, but we had to redirect for Gibraltar, which I'll talk about here in a second. But we feel very comfortable with Italy and in the Middle East, in the Med, and in Africa. The vulnerability now is Italy seems to be fighting one-on-one against the full wrath of the U.S. Doing an Atlantic first strategy, it seems Lancerbolt's concentrating his military power here in the Atlantic. We did not anticipate the Portugal move, and a lot gave him a base of operations. It did make us appreciate and be grateful that we had already come to the conclusion of not finishing the Spanish Civil War. So that worked in our favor. It prevented him from marching through Spain to either liberate Gibraltar or to attack France. So this has worked well for us. But we realized we could not have a massive American presence here, particularly with his long-range bombers coming in and obliterating Italian forces on the peninsula, or dropping large airborne contingents onto Rome or any of these islands and taking away our air bases. It was critical for us to hold Gibraltar, reinforce Gibraltar, and push him off of Portugal and deny this as long as we could, and then pull back into the Med. So that's what we've done. We'll see what his counterstrike is, as we said. But Italy's focus now, with the reinforcements coming in, Japan being their outsourced producer of capital ships because of their Kido Butai and improved construction, and then Germany using the ports in Yugoslavia, producing smaller support vessels, destroyers, light cruisers, and then possibly air. Lots of air Germany's built, and that's worked very well for Italy. So Italy has succeeded only because they've been propped up by Germany and Japan. But we're very, very happy with Italy's success, and they just need to hang on now. Germany, we did the 1-2 punch. I think we invaded northern England around the same turn as the Japanese did the U.S. So that was coordinated and intended to be that way. We modeled our defense of northern England here with the Germans to what the Japanese did in San Francisco. Heavy air, using the enemy's factory against them, not only denying them that tech bonus, which we've been very tech focused, but also producing units. He tried to blockade us, which prevented the transports from shucking more troops, but didn't prevent us from building. And he chose, I think wisely, not to split up his fleet and try to blockade all the way around, because then we would have picked off some ships. But he did his attack to retake it and turned Great Britain into an armed camp. We were fortunate that we were able to rescue the 4 fighters that were there and get them back, so we didn't lose them like the Japanese did in San Francisco. But the Japanese had the city factor to contend with, where the Americans were trying to encircle the city and they needed to strategically bomb the airfield. So that's why we went all out with the fighters to try to wipe out his air force. We were going after his bomber, and Lancerbolt wisely made that his last casualty. So we had to go through everything else. If he'd made it his first casualty, which we were hoping he would do, we'd kill it and then we'd pull back in the city. But he did not. He knew what we were doing, and that was frustrating. In San Francisco. Here, it's not a city, so we were just able to finish the fortification just in time and get a couple rounds of delayed actions. But now that the British have retaken their island already, they're building transports. and they're putting their fleet out here to hit any of these territories. We're not sure where he's going to land. We did try to cut off this choke point with artillery, coastal artillery, but he can go anywhere, which not as much worried about preventing him from landing. But as soon as he does, that kills the strategic objective, right? So Germany's 4 victory points in the game. The whole point of winning the game is getting these victory points. Is one is the Atlantic Wall, which is easily taken away whenever the Allies want to. So that's 1 lost. Winning the Spanish Civil War, which we've deferred, but not sure if we're going to actually be able to finish it, because as soon as we do, we think the American presence right here will just make us regret that. So that's point number 2 lost. And then point number 3 is Lebensraum, which is worth 2 points, but 3 Soviet cities. We might be able to do that, but not counting on it. They're strongest. I mean, it's already 1943. The Soviets are at full strength. They're getting more money than Germany is, so not likely. So we're not counting on any victory points for Germany. We just want to hold Paris and survive, while the Axis win off of Italy's points and Japan's points. So that's our end game strategy. Not turtling entirely, but not a lot planned for Germany from a main thrust. Reinforce, hold on to Paris, and support Italy. So that's it. Hopefully you're enjoying the game as much as we have. I think we're going to release the mid-game strategy video, which I rewatched recently just to see what was on it. We had talked about invading the U.S., which we're past, invading England, which we're past. We talked about our strategy at the time for attacking the Soviet Union, which we did not end up doing. So we're not sure what effect that information will have on Mark the Shark, and whether he'll act on it or change his defensive posture accordingly. But if he's going to go to war with us, we expect to see these army groups move closer to the border and not stand back, expecting our blitz to go through his meat shield. So until he does that, we're in good shape. And we'll keep an eye on the clock. So this is Captain G on behalf of Eggman. The next video we make on strategy will be post-game, just talking about whatever happens between now and the end. Hope, again, you've enjoyed this. Happy holidays, whatever holidays it is when this finally gets released. Over and out.